1,000 billion years ago, the world was empty, silent, covered in endless darkness, until the goddess of light poured her light across the chaos and created a vast continent where many races were born, like the dragon folk, the Onis, the demon kings, the elves, the dwarves, the centaurs, the beast folk, and the humans, including this tiny dwarf-looking boy here, our protagonist Light, who after saying goodbye to his family begins his journey as an adventurer. But as soon as he reaches the city, he quickly realizes how humans, or at least he, are despised by the other races. And when he enters the Adventurers Guild and registers with the receptionist, she tells him he'll start with rank F since he's new, and then asks what special ability he has, so he explains that his gift is something called unlimited gacha. But she doesn't understand and asks him to show it, so Light pulls the handle of the gacha machine and gets a bent fork. What an absolute trash ability, at least for now. But he keeps trying so he doesn't look useless. Yet everything that comes out is garbage, even rotten fruit. So the receptionist confirms rank F is perfect for him and tells him it's the best he can get right now. And when Light asks what job he can do, she points at the request board but notices how nervous he looks and asks if he has trouble reading, and he admits it, which doesn't surprise her since human literacy is very low. So she recommends simple jobs like gathering firewood and other tiny chores, which obviously pay very little, but Light accepts happily anyway, and after a long day of hard work, he barely earns enough to afford a cheap inn. But as he walks through the dark streets, some beast folk bump into him, accuse him of dirtying their clothes, and as compensation steal all his money and kick him into a puddle, walking away laughing while other races stare at him with disgusting looks, except for one group who approaches him gently, but when they touch his hand he panics thinking they're going to hurt him. Yet the group kneels beside him in the muddy puddle and hugs him to show they won't harm him. Then they explain they belong to the Conquered of Tribes, a special team representing the 9 races created by the goddess. The elf introduces herself as Sasha, the werewolf is Guru, the Dragonian is Drago. Very original, I know. Eloni is the demon king, Sion the dark elf, and Nano the dwarf, and of course Centaur the centaur, and they tell Light their group is missing one member, a human. So the Conquered of Tribes will be complete because they want to end racial discrimination and build a world where everyone can live together equally, and they need someone like him to join, so Light happily accepts. And in the next scene, the group is in a massive dungeon protecting Light from danger, and he feels completely useless. But Sasha tells him not to feel frustrated because this is the biggest and most dangerous dungeon in the world, and the rest of the team starts teasing the two of them, saying they look cute together, making Sasha blush as she says she just doesn't want the Conquered of Tribes to look bad if their human member dies. But the others say, yeah, whatever, and Drago pats Light's shoulder and tells him not to worry. They love the tea he makes, and that alone is already useful. So they continue through the dungeon until Guru says they've reached the right spot, and everyone suddenly changes their expressions, while innocent Light asks if it's time to rest so he can prepare tea. And just as he begins to set things up, Garu coldly tells him he is expelled from the group, and every single member reveals their true colors, telling Light they can't stand him anymore. Humans stink and are useless and insignificant. Shocked, Light asks why they're doing this when they treated him so kindly before, and they admit they were only pretending because the higher-ups were worried about his unlimited gacha ability and ordered them to keep an eye on him. So they added him to the group thinking he might be a master, until they realized his skills are mediocre and his gift is trash. So now he's nothing but a burden. And Sasha says she's relieved he isn't a master because the idea of marrying a lower creature like him disgusts her. And Light, confused and shaking, asks what they even mean by master. But the Conquered of Tribes prepares to kill him before other adventurers show up, because they were given strict orders to eliminate any potential problem at the root. And Guru punches him in the face, forcing Light to run for his life in panic. But Sasha shoots an arrow straight into his leg, making him fall screaming as the group delights in his pain, while Garu begins beating him brutally. But the others stop him because they plan to report that their human member died in a surprise monster attack, so the body must not have suspicious wounds that contradict the story. Light drags himself across the ground, desperately trying to stay alive, wondering why in the world all of this is happening to him, saying he wants to live. And the moment he screams that desire, a magic seal suddenly appears beneath him. Drago panics when he realizes Light activated a magic trap on the floor, and Guru immediately charges toward him. But by sheer luck, Light vanishes and escapes, only to reappear somewhere else inside the dungeon, the most dangerous dungeon in the entire world, and he instantly understands that if he didn't die at the hands of those traitors, then he will definitely die when he runs into a monster. Frustrated and broken, he starts crying because he truly cared about them. They treated him kindly, but it was all a disgusting lie, and they dragged him into this dungeon just to get rid of him. And he remembers they mentioned orders, wondering if that's why they tried to kill him. But then he shakes his head because none of that matters anymore. What matters is revenge. He will rip out the guts of every one of those bastards, he swears it. Yet right after shouting that promise, an enormous level 1000 monster appears behind him, making Light realize the trap teleported him to the deepest part of the abyss. But even with death breathing down his neck, he refuses to give up. He will not die here, not before seeing his family again, not before taking revenge, and with pure desperation he starts using his gacha over and over, until suddenly the gacha behind behaves strangely, something he has never seen happen before, and out of it appears a glowing busty maid who instantly destroys the monster with no mercy, declaring she will never forgive anyone who threatens her master. Light stares in shock as the girl walks toward him, kneels respectfully, and after seeing that her master is wounded, she heals him effortlessly, then politely asks if he would honor her by giving her his name. So Light introduces himself and the maid blushes deeply as she repeats his name and calls him master, explaining that according to the honor code of a maid, she is bound to serve him with her life, swearing absolute loyalty until death. Light, stunned, asks who she is, and she gracefully introduces herself as May, the maid who always seeks her master, revealing that her level is 1999 and that she is an ultra super rare card that came from his unlimited gacha, promising she will always stay by his side. But Light can't believe it because his gacha only gives trash, and it feels impossible that someone this incredible came from it, and May gently asks him to call her only by her name. Seeing how insistent she is, Light agrees, and then May asks for permission to use her appraisal skill to inspect the details of his gacha. Surprised, Light asks if appraisal is her gift, and she tells him no, it's one of her innate abilities, then explains that it is impossible for his gift to be useless. So she asks again to evaluate him, and when Light agrees, she is shocked to discover that all of his abilities are hidden under an extremely strong layer of concealment, meaning no one who isn't at her level could ever see his true details. She explains that unlimited gacha is far from a useless ability because he can use it infinitely, and the probabilities and rarities of the cards it produces change depending on the mana density around him. The rarities go from highest to lowest as extra, super ultra rare, triple S rare, double S rare, rare, normal, and error. She tells him mana density exists everywhere in the world, but on the surface the density is very low, which is why pulling a super ultra rare like her is nearly impossible. But in the depths of this dungeon, mana is overflowing, meaning he has a much higher chance of summoning rare cards, and she congratulates him for being brave enough to travel all the way here alone just to use the true potential of his unlimited gacha, though meeting even one monster here would normally be fatal with his current stats. But now that she is with him, there won't be any problem. However, Light interrupts her, telling her he could never have come to the abyss alone. He was with a group, but they betrayed him. They cut him, pierced him. Light explains that they pierced him with arrows and left him on the brink of death, almost killed by the very people he trusted, when all he ever wanted was to protect and feed his family. They bragged about ending discrimination and creating a fair world, but they only wanted to use him, so he swears they will pay and he will not rest until they get what they deserve. Though at that moment, May suddenly hugs him, apologizing because a maid like her could never understand the depth of his suffering. But she can promise him something. She will bring divine retribution upon his enemies and only needs his order so she can hunt down those faithless traitors and bring back their heads mounted on pikes. But Light quickly tells her he can't allow that, and May says he has a kind heart, but those people do not deserve mercy. Light answers that's not the point. He trusted them and they betrayed him. But that happened because he is too weak, which means he must become stronger, even if it's impossible for a human like him, because he wants revenge with his own hands. He wants to make them pay himself, and he nervously asks May if she thinks that dream is foolish, but she kneels respectfully and tells him that her master's desire is her desire, and if what he seeks is personal revenge, then by her honor, she will help him achieve it, because she believes in his potential. And Light thanks her deeply before using unlimited gacha once more to begin building a kingdom that will open the path to his vengeance. And in that instant, the abyss bursts into a bright light, becoming the first page of his grand story of revenge. Then, in the blink of an eye, 3 years pass, and now we see that our protagonist has built an entire kingdom at the bottom of the abyss, a highly advanced society where he is worshipped, although May is not very happy about how obsessed the fairies are with her master. And as they walk through the citadel, everyone greets him kindly while also reporting that there are issues with resources. So May instantly says she will take action to replenish supplies. 3 years have passed and many new people have come to live there, so Light thinks they should reevaluate how they manage everything and asks May what the other 4-9s are doing, and she tells him they are working very hard. Aoyuki is exploring and mapping the area around the abyss. Ellie is working endlessly to develop new magic, and Asuna is patrolling inside the castle since she is an expert in close combat and also very charismatic, although May doesn't think it's a good idea to leave her inside the castle. Later, they run into Jack, a level 777 card who trains Light, and because Jack speaks very casually to him, May doesn't like it, but Light tells her not to worry, and then they begin training where we see Light has improved so much he can now face a level 777 card. Meanwhile, Asuna finishes checking the castle, and when she meets the cleaning fairies, she proudly tells them she's on a super important mission assigned directly by Lord Light, and the fairies praise her work, though mostly just to make her feel good. And since Asuna lets it get to her head, the fairies take advantage and ask her to patrol a certain secret location they themselves can't approach, and Asuna innocently agrees, unaware of anything suspicious, while the fairies grin mischievously. In the next scene, Asuna knocks on a door and is greeted by May, who demands to know why she has come to Light's room, and Asuna says she's patrolling and asks what May is doing in Lord Light's bedroom if she's supposed to be training with Jack, and Mei quickly claims she's cleaning. But while she's talking, Asuna walks inside and comments that it looks more like Mei is rolling around on her master's bed. So Mei tries to bluff, saying it's a secret bed-making technique, which Asuna finds interesting, but Mei refuses to explain because it's a secret maid art. And Asuna says she wouldn't expect any less from the first card ever summoned by Lord Light, making Mei quietly relieved because Asuna really isn't very smart. However, Asuna remembers she has a message and pulls out a card to inform Mei that the fairies disapprove of her monopolizing Lord Light's room since they also have the right to clean it, and they demand a vote to end the headmaid monopoly. And Asuna reads out loud that the fairies curse her 3 times, though she doesn't understand it well, and wonders if they're doing it so she gains resistance. But Mei tells her not to worry since it's an internal matter between the headmaid and the cleaning fairies, then thanks her and gives her coins as compensation. Asuna happily leaves, buys pancakes and milk, and returns to the castle where she runs into Aoyuki, asking if she wasn't supposed to be patrolling the forest. But Aoyuki only meows in response to everything until she finally explains she returned to deliver the map Mei requested. Asuna slaps her on the back, praising her loudly for doing excellent work, and then continues her patrol until she arrives at Light's throne, shouting "Red bean pancakes" to check if any monsters are around. And seeing everything is clear, she begins rubbing her face all over Light's throne, whining about not having seen him all day. But unfortunately, she ends up breaking one of the throne's ornaments, so she quickly picks it up, puts it back in place, and runs away because dumb as she is, she's not completely stupid. Meanwhile, our protagonist continues training with Jack, who suggests stopping for now and going for a bath, which Light thinks is a great idea, and now in a large hot spring, because let's be honest, it wouldn't be anime without one. Jack congratulates him for getting much better at controlling his body, and says there aren't many fighters down here who can face him one-on-one, and he doubts the surface world has many opponents either, maybe very few. Light answers that they don't know what waits for them above, but he won't let his guard down, not until he completes his revenge. Meanwhile, in Mei's office, the cleaning fairies stand nervously while she asks if they know why they were summoned, and they pretend not to know, but Mei begins reciting every single word of their earlier message, making the fairies panic and step back repeatedly before apologizing again and again as Mei asks them what they were trying to accomplish with such behavior. Although the cleaning fairies try to defend themselves with cheap excuses, Mei tells them their biggest mistake was sending Nasuna to do their dirty work, so as punishment, they must clean the entire grand hallway leading to Light's throne, and they must do it by hand. The fairies panic because that hallway is ridiculously long, but Mei reminds them that the path to being a perfect maid is harsh, and since she must go to the surface for a mission for Light, they will handle all the work until she returns, so the fairies accept with no choice. While Nasuna bumps into Ellie at the market, who asks if she is looking for sweets, but Nasuna says she is admiring a gauntlet and then asks why Ellie is in the city instead of creating magic, and Ellie proudly says she returned because all her plans are proceeding perfectly and asks if Nasuna is stupid. Nasuna gets offended, claiming she is not stupid, although she can't even recite the multiplication table of 1. And soon, both begin arguing like children while the citizens watch, thinking they are extremely immature, and Ellie smugly brags about how many times she has had tea with the great and blessed Lord Light and is sure that next time they will have dinner alone in his room and spend the night together, causing Nasuna to explode with frustration because she also wants to drink tea with Light and begins throwing a tantrum. So Ellie asks if that's all she wants, and Nasuna honestly says yes, which makes Ellie tell her she's an idiot if tea is the only thing she wants from her lord. But after all the yelling, Nasuna finally tells Ellie that even if Ellie is only good at magic, she can still count on Nasuna for close combat tasks, then happily walks away to continue her patrol as if nothing happened, leaving Ellie thinking that's exactly the kind of person Nasuna is. Meanwhile, the cleaning fairies complain, wondering why Mei is mad at them when they only protested her monopolizing Light's room. But since they know they cannot oppose the head maid, they wonder if they could poison her, though one fairy reminds the others Mei is immune to poison, and they lament because they just want to clean their lord's room and also lick his boots, lick his forks, smell his clothes, and many other obsessive things, which all of them admit they would happily do. As they talk strategy, they remember Mei was the first card Light ever summoned, and that 3 whole months passed before Aoyuki was summoned, meaning Mei and the young master were alone together for 3 entire months, and back then he was inexperienced, so they all burst with jealousy at Mei's absurd luck and immediately try turning their jealousy into negative energy to curse her and wish for her death. But right then Mei walks into the room, surprising them since she was supposed to be on the surface, and she calmly says she was on her way when she happened to hear their lovely prayers, and the fairies clench their little bottoms in fear as Mei demands an explanation. Cornered, they admit they are jealous because she was the first to serve Light and spent 3 whole months with him, and Mei tells them she is not obligated to explain anything, but she will reveal this much. Before Aoyuki was summoned, she spent those months teaching her lord combat techniques and disciplining him, so they had no time for indecent things, then says she came because she thought she was too harsh with their previous punishment, but now realizes she was completely wrong and that they actually need even more work, so she orders them to also clean the throne hall, since if they have time to cast curses, they have time to clean every corner of the hall. After a sharp, threatening glare, the fairies promise to do their best, and later, they are seen scrubbing the throne hall desperately when they find the mess Nasuna left behind, while Nasuna in her room laments that she didn't get to see Lord Light all day, but hopes she will see him tomorrow. The next day, as Light exits the castle, he runs into Nasuna, Ellie, and Aoyuki, and the moment the girls see him, they all begin complaining at once, especially Aoyuki. But suddenly, a hellhound appears, and Light begins trembling as he remembers that terrible day. But his loyal companions instantly prepare to annihilate the beast for daring to approach their lord, their aura so terrifying that even the hellhound kneels in fear. But Light tells them not to worry, because he is fine, and gently pets the hellhound, thinking his companions would wipe out an entire species even if he joked about it. And when May asks what mission he has today, Light explains that he received her message and that it is time to prepare because one of their targets has taken the bait, and he needs all of them to handle the first prey and begin the revenge he has planned for 3 years. Meanwhile, in another city, Guru is being praised by everyone, and when he runs into a human, he takes the chance to humiliate him as usual. And later in a restaurant, his bootlickers keep flattering him non-stop, admiring his skills and his amazing perception, and Garu proudly explains that thanks to his nose, he always took the best jobs, and that is what raised him to the top. One of his lackeys asks if those jobs include the one from 3 years ago with the Concordia of Tribes and what kind of job that was, but the others quickly tell him to shut up because that mission was secret and only the great Guru could do it. And Garu apologizes but says he is sworn to secrecy while thinking that in reality that job was the easiest of his life. Remembering the moment they disposed of Light, a job that made him rich and famous, although it always bothered him that they never found the kid after he was teleported, and he wonders about the mysterious master everyone is desperately searching for. Suddenly his instincts flare up and he feels that digging deeper could be dangerous, but exactly then May appears in the restaurant apologizing for disturbing him. And now, in a new scene inside the dungeon, she disguises herself as a devil while being escorted by Garu's group, and Garu recalls how she introduced herself at the restaurant as a loyal servant of Light, explaining that Light comes from a noble bloodline and she is desperately searching for him, though Garu didn't believe a word because Light didn't look noble at all. But May insisted she cannot reveal details and begged him not to ask too many questions, saying she recently learned he was Garu from the Concordia of Tribes and that her Lord Light had joined that group of adventurers supposedly dying in the abyss. Garu thinks it could all be lies, but if it's true and Light belongs to nobility, escorting her could make him incredibly wealthy. So he asks what she wants, and she asks him to escort her to the place where Light was last seen. Garu says the place is too dangerous, but May opens a case filled with 3 gold bars, and Garu wonders if Light's family is really noble if even a maid can pay that much just to be escorted. And although he senses it could be a trap, he still believes humans are weak, and Garu tells May that the money doesn't matter because Light was supposedly a great friend in their group. So he accepts the deal, and May pretends to cry with excitement while Garu secretly thinks that once he takes her to that place, he will enjoy her body and destroy her over Light's grave. And later, they finally arrive at the spot where they ambushed him, where Garu makes up lie after lie while May kneels and pretends to cry, mourning what happened to her master. Garu blocks the exits, but May begins describing everything they did to Light in that exact place, and Garu snaps into alert mode, wondering how this woman knows every detail when only a few people know what truly happened. So he demands to know who she is and who she works for, and May stands up to reveal that her loyalty belongs only to her master Light. And when she glares at him with pure rage, Garu and his group panic, unable to understand why they suddenly feel fear toward that woman, and as her threatening stare shows Garu that he is already dead, Light suddenly arrives and tells May to calm down, because Garu is his prey. Garu and his men are shocked, wondering how a filthy human child reached the heart of the abyss, and Light lifts his hood to show his face while Garu, unable to believe it, asks how he is still alive, and Light smiles and tells him he's here to collect his revenge with 3 years of interest. Garu bursts out laughing and asks if a mere level 15 human boy came back to take revenge on him, a level 150 beastman, and says Light has no idea how he survived, but made a huge mistake by showing his face because once he kills him and brings back his body, he will be crowned king of the beastmen. But Light looks disappointed and asks if Garu isn't curious about how he survived and what his connection to May is, and Garu admits he is right since he cannot measure the strength of that strange maid, but says it doesn't matter because 2 humans can't do anything against his entire group, all above level 130, and he doesn't care how Light survived since it must have been thanks to that woman finding him. Light agrees partly, but Garu doesn't wait and orders his men to kill him, yet in an instant May tears the heads off 2 of them, and Light thanks her for stepping in but asks her to go block the exits. Garu's group cannot believe that such a maid killed their companions so easily, but Garu tells them to stay calm because it was a surprise attack since inferior humans could never surpass them. But Light says he is disappointed because they haven't changed at all, and asks if it never crossed their minds that perhaps the truly weak ones are the other races, and Garu screams that humans are trash since their mana capacity is minimal, showing his level 158 status. But Light explains that races vary greatly in how far their levels can go, and this difference is what created created discrimination against humans. Garou tells him humans are garbage, yet Light asks how garbage killed 2 of his men, and Garou insists he must have used some magical item. Then all of them rush at Light, but he easily knocks them out and then approaches Garou, asking if he's already tired. And Garou, blinded by rage at being looked down on, steps back and says Light will pay for pretending to be superior when he's just a useless insect, then summons his magic beast Fenrir and proudly warns Light to prepare for his secret weapon, a level 500 Fenrir. But Light only sighs and says it's pathetically weak. Garou assumes Light has gone insane with fear and orders him to crawl like the trash he is and beg for forgiveness on all fours. But Light drops his weapon and tells Garou he won't move from that spot so he can do whatever he wants, and Garou immediately orders his beast to attack with its roar, saying that all the concentrated mana will pulverize Light. But then he freezes in shock when he sees Light isn't even scratched, merely brushing off dust and saying the attack only kicked up dirt. Everyone is speechless as Light tells Garou it's his turn now and says calling that poor puppy Fenrir gives the wrong impression, so he'll show him what a real Fenrir looks like, and he summons the true primordial wolf god Fenrir, a level 9000 card who destroys Garou's beast with a single breath. Garou and his group gape at its overwhelming power, but Light says he could have wiped out that puppy himself and shows his level, making all of them clench in terror as they ask if humans weren't supposed to only reach level 100. And Garou insists Light must be an imposter since he looks the same as 3 years ago. But Light explains he is using the Bracelet of Youth, which prevents aging and helps him remember the pain, anger, and despair they made him endure. Garou realizes he cannot win and begins begging for his life, saying he was only following orders from the Federation and blaming the others for the attack, but they shout that it's all lies. And Light asks Garou's group if they know anything, and they all say yes. So Mei instantly slices them into sushi for daring to lie to her master Light. Garou's fear explodes as Light asks one last question. Based on the power Light and Mei displayed, does he think they could win a war against the surface world? And he warns him not to lie because Mei has the eye of truth and sees everything. Garou wets himself and says with the power Light showed, the war would begin in his favor. But no matter his level, he's still only one person, while the nations of the world have spent years gathering weapons, armor, and special items. So once everyone unites against him, he will face difficulties. Light agrees and says that's exactly what he thought, because there is a limit to what a single person can do. And although he has more questions, he will first teleport Garou somewhere, and using a teleport card they arrive at the throne hall, where Garou trembles at the sight of all the forces under Light's control as every one of them bows in respect. Light sits on his throne and orders all his soldiers to rise and show their levels, and every single one of them is above level 1500. And he tells Garou these are the forces he has gathered over the last 3 years, and asks again what the chances are of winning a war against all nations. Garou's expression says everything, and Light smiles joyfully and congratulates him for earning the privilege of suffering agony and despair worse than death. Garou stammers, asking if Light plans to become a god since with that much power he could destroy the world in an instant, and Light says becoming a god doesn't sound bad, but whether he becomes a benevolent god or a demon lord depends on the answer from the surface world, because the time has finally come to march from the abyss toward the surface. From the heart of darkness into the light, Light and his people finally rise to the surface, and he feels overwhelmingly excited at the idea of seeing his family again. But when they reach his city, he immediately realizes the horrible truth. Everything is in ruins. The place where his family lived is completely destroyed, and although 6 months have passed since the attack, the only thing that comforts Light is that he did not find the bodies of his brother or sister, which keeps a tiny spark of hope alive inside him. Gold, a level 5000 card, advises him to continue moving forward because sleeping outside in the open is not ideal. But Nemumu scolds him for speaking to young Master Light without proper respect, and Gold calmly replies that none of that matters. The only thing that truly matters is that Lord Light is safe, and besides, sleeping on the ground is uncomfortable anyway, something Nemumu reluctantly accepts while the eagle calmly informs them that they no longer need to worry because now, with their overwhelming power, they could easily conquer the world. Though Lord Light does not want to launch such an attack so suddenly, and Gold praises him for that decision because they must first learn about their enemy. After all, they don't know the strength of the other nations, and it is better to study the entire situation. The attack on his village happened because Light was considered a potential master, and this makes him wonder what exactly a potential master is and why it would push all these nations to commit something so cruel. And consumed by fury, he declares that if the truth of the world is rooted in evil, then he will burn the entire world in the flames of hell. But Gold reminds him to hide his killing intent while they are still inside the city because innocent people might die. So Light calms himself, activates the Fool's Mask to hide his identity, and continues forward with firm determination to find his family. While they are flying, Nemumu calls him by his real name Light and asks what they plan to do in Dagas, but Gold immediately scolds her, reminding her that on the surface, she cannot call him Light because his name here must be Dart. Otherwise, the people of Concordia might discover him. So Light explains that the first step is gathering information, and to do that, they must rank up in the adventure Adventurers Guild because the higher the rank, the greater the access to information. When they spot the city in the distance, they choose to continue on foot so they don't attract attention by flying, and on the way they run into a wagon being attacked by dwarven bandits. Yes, small dwarven bandits, and Light orders his companions to capture them immediately. And in only a blink, the bandits are already tied up, leaving the grateful humans from the wagon so impressed that they decide to take Light's group directly to Dagos. The little kid traveling with them is thrilled because he has never seen such strong humans and asks them if they are headed to the dungeon, since going to Dagos usually means that believing they must be famous adventurers, but Light tells him they are not even registered yet and are only aspiring adventurers, so their first step is to register and then climb the ranks. The man explains that they chose the perfect place because Dagos is the southernmost city of the Dwarven Kingdom, sharing borders with the Human Kingdom and the Elven Kingdom, and although those nations often fight, the quality of Dagos dungeon attracts many adventurers, making the city incredibly busy despite being in the middle of nowhere, and the man reveals that he himself runs an inn. Upon arriving at the gate, he asks if they are sure they want to stay there, and Light tells him he has already done more than enough by sharing so much information, so the man introduces himself as Colonel and asks them to consider staying at his inn. After that, the group arrives at the guild where they see countless aspiring human adventurers. But when the time for registration comes, Nemumu becomes furious because she cannot accept that her beloved Lord Light must begin at rank F, and the receptionist explains that everyone, without exception, must start at that rank. And when Nemumu refuses to calm down, Light apologizes on her behalf, and once they leave the guild, she bursts into tears, apologizing because she made her great master bow his head for her mistake, but Light gently tells her not to let it get to her, and after that they head to Colonel's inn. Colonel, excited, tells them not to hesitate if they need anything, and Light decides not to waste the opportunity and says he wants to rent the entire upper floor for a full month, meaning no one, not even the inn staff, may go upstairs, and he hands Colonel a huge bag of gold coins. But Colonel says he cannot accept all of that after Light saved his life, although he also clarifies that accepting the request itself is part of the payment, and if Light insists, he will accept, and if he doesn't insist, he will also accept. After settling on the second floor, Light uses silence, magic nullification, and detection to ensure no one can spy on them, finally allowing everyone to relax. But Nemumu tells him she understands he wants to come to the surface pretending to be an adventurer, yet no matter how strong he is, something could always go wrong, so she suggests he give his orders from the abyss instead, and Light, annoyed, asks her if she intends to deny him his revenge, causing Nemumu to panic and beg for forgiveness while Light's cold aura fills the room, making the atmosphere tremble, and Gold begins laughing, saying that sometimes a man has to do things on his own even if they are dangerous, and Light, realizing he was too harsh with Nemumu, apologizes to her, but she is the one who bows her head and begs forgiveness for overstepping, asking him if he will allow her to redo her oath of loyalty. Light agrees, and we see her kneel before him and kiss his feet as a gesture of absolute submission, though many of the beings he already summoned mutter that they wish they could receive the same reward, and Gold laughs and teasingly asks Nemumu if this is some kind of fetish, making Nemumu snap angrily and demand how he dares say such a rude thing about a sacred act devoted to her lord. But Gold simply replies that all he saw was a perverted girl enjoying kissing a boy's feet, leaving Light extremely embarrassed, and later they head toward the dungeon where he notices they are attracting a lot of attention, which is exactly what he wants for Dart, though the line to enter the dungeon is extremely long. As they wait, the group notices there are not many elves around, and Light explains it is because dwarves and elves are constantly fighting over ownership of this dungeon, and just then a group of adventurers shamelessly cuts the line, intimidating the humans behind them who are too scared to complain. But Light steps forward and politely tells them to return to their place because everyone needs to follow the line properly. One of the rude adventurers asks if he knows who he is talking to, and Light, calmly and almost playfully, replies that he has no idea because the man is wearing a hood that covers his face, and the man prepares to attack him, but one of his companions holds him back, reminding him it isn't wise to cause trouble here and that this isn't the place to reveal that weapon. So with no other choice, they go to the end of the line, though not without threatening Light that he will pay for this. Once they leave, the rest of the adventurers, especially the humans, quietly celebrate Light for putting them in their place, and Gold tells his master that he is becoming a celebrity already, while the little adventurers from before thank him for stepping in, admitting they stayed quiet because they didn't want to cause trouble and apologizing for that. But Light tells them not to worry because all he did was defend everyone since those men were bothering the entire line. The kids thank him, and one of them asks Gold if his armor is really made of gold, causing his companions to scold him for being so reckless. But the boy insists that everyone wants to know and they are not the only ones, and Gold, completely innocent, is about to reveal that yes, the armor is made of real gold, but Nemumu quickly interrupts, telling them it is only painted because you cannot make a sturdy armor out of such a soft metal. And when the nosy kid tries to speak again, his friend covers his mouth and apologizes to Light's group, but Light reassures them and explains that loyalty means everything to Gold and his armor is a symbol of his knighthood, while thinking to himself that it also helps attract attention as adventurers. The kids then ask if this is their first time in the dungeon because they notice they aren't carrying much gear, and the dungeon floors are huge, so most adventurers bring enough supplies to camp inside, and Light thanks them for the advice just as the dungeon gatekeeper tells them it is their turn to enter. The kids wave goodbye, and Light and his group think that they are too used to using their item box and should take something out just to look normal. And later, once inside the dungeon, the group thinks that in order to unravel its secrets, they must analyze the dungeon cores. Though not even Eli could do that, and if Eli couldn't, then Nemumu definitely can't either. Light explains that dungeon cores contain an enormous concentration of mana and can create anything. And as soon as they step deeper inside the dungeon, they see it is a completely different world. And Light uses the clairvoyance card, concealment, and flight to explore quickly while heading straight toward the second floor. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the leader of the elf group is fuming because he is the youngest warrior among the elite white knights, an incredibly powerful fighter with the blood of the great Keto running through his veins, and he cannot accept that a disgusting human, worth less than an insect, dared speak to him like that. But his companion Yannak advises him to calm down and continue searching for the trolls on the third floor, though Keto orders him to shut up, frustrated because his level cap is only 100 and he refuses to let anyone belittle him, desperate to level up as soon as possible. And he orders Yannak to help him with that, and Yannak smiles and told him not to worry because they are partners and he will gladly share the results of his research with him. Though as soon as Yannak turns his back, Keto thinks that once he levels up, he will get rid of that suspicious dark elf. Meanwhile, Light's group easily defeats the trolls and begins collecting the gems to return to the surface and prove they reached the third floor so they can rise in rank quickly. On their way back, they notice the group from before surrounded by monsters and watch for a moment, noting that they actually work quite well as a team, but suddenly Light appears in front of them and warns them to be more careful, showing that he stopped a creeping bush snake whose venom isn't lethal but would have paralyzed them. And the kids thank him for the warning but suddenly feel something approaching, and from deep inside the forest an enormous pack of wolves emerges, making them wonder why wolves are here when they shouldn't belong to this area. The small adventurers decide to run, but Light tells them those wolves won't attack them, shocking the kids who ask if he means that the real enemy is something else. And right then, a massive mantis emerges from the forest, and the kids cannot believe that thing is still alive because mantises were supposedly exterminated 10 years ago. Wanting to help their benefactors, they tell Light's group to escape while they distract it, but Light, or rather Dart, tells them that if they want to run, then he and his people will face it themselves. And Nemumu warns that the mantis must be at least level 500, and Gold wastes no time rushing in to attack, terrifying the little adventurers who think they are all going to die fighting that monster. Gold slashes at it, but the mantis blocks easily, and he comments that it's quite sturdy, so Dark tries hitting it with a Nia arrow, but the mantis doesn't even flinch. The leader of the small group says they must help, but the mage girl is amazed because Dark used a combat spell without chanting, and she doesn't understand anything but insists they should help, though Gold tells them not to worry because this is the perfect moment to show them how to fight with sword and shield. And blocking the mantis's claw with his shield, he pulverizes it, explaining that a perfect defense at the right moment can be lethal. Then he slices off one of its legs and advises the kids to be creative in battle. And Dark refuses to fall behind, so he fires multiple Nia arrows, controlling their trajectories to strike the mantis again and again. And the girl is stunned because he is controlling 30 arrows at the same time. While Dark feels it is time to end the creature's suffering, but the mantis desperately tries to run for its life, only for Dark to block its escape path with a massive wall of fire. And the mage girl watching is thrilled by his fire magic, though the mantis panics and takes flight. But Nemumu leaps once and finishes it instantly, making Gold complain. And she angrily asks why on earth he is complaining now, and Gold reveals it is because she destroyed it completely, and now they can't sell anything from the corpse, causing Nemumu to panic as she apologizes to Dark, while the little adventurers cannot believe the three of them defeated a 4-phase mantis. Later, they at least manage to recover the beast's core, which will allow them to rank up, and before leaving, the mage girl uses magic to clean them up, and warns that night is dangerous, inviting them to their camp for a simple meal. But Dark refuses because he doesn't want to take advantage of their kindness, though the kids insist because they know a certain girl who would be thrilled to talk about magic. That night, while eating, the mage girl is completely fascinated by Dark's magic, but he tells her she has nothing to envy because she herself is a skilled mage, though she praises his abilities, explaining that he can use combat magic without chanting. And when her teammate asks if it is really that hard, she explains there are 3 types of mages: combat mages with simple spells like Ice Sword or Nia Arrow, tactical mages for stronger spells like Ice Wall, and strategic mages who cast world-changing spells like tsunamis, meteor strikes, or earthquakes, though those require several mages working together, and magical races like dragonoids, elves, and dark elves can use such magic much more easily. But for humans, it is impossible, yet Dark can do it without even speaking the spell, so she is sure he will become a legend. Her teammates tell her to calm down and tell Dark that although they don't know much about magic, they know he is a good person, and they are grateful. And then they remind Mia she should not forget her recommendation letter for the beginner magic school, because they're sure she will one day cast tactical spells too. And Dark asks if they mean the School 9, where the races signed their peace agreements. And the kids confirm it and explain that Mia had been unable to apply earlier because their parents died in an epidemic, and to survive, Mia, Dark, and their childhood friends Kin, Ray, and Wordy formed this guild. And his goal as the older brother is to send Mia to that magic school, though his teammates correct him and say it is everyone's goal. Dark watches Mia, remembers his own little sister, and touched by their sincerity tells Mia he is sure she will achieve her dream because she has talent, making her blush and thank him. And then Wordy, as intrusive as ever, asks why Dark's group became adventurers, and Dark explains their parents died in a fire, while Nemumu and Gold say they are seeking a cure for their master's burns and travel with him out of gratitude toward his parents. The kids feel awkward, and Wordy then asks Nemumu if she is Gold's girlfriend, making her snap that she would never get involved with that thing, and Gold says he feels the same because he prefers more mature women. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Kito complains that his grand sword was not forged for hunting low-tier monsters, though his companion tells him to calm down because they need samples to break the level limit barrier between races. And now it is time to move on to the next hunt, humans. And Kito becomes excited because he had been waiting for that. Days later at the guild, the receptionist is amazed by Dark's group because they always bring impressive items, and Nemumu reminds her they deserve S rank already, while Dark politely asks for the counting results, and the receptionist kindly tells them to go enjoy a gourmet lunch prepared specially for them while she finishes the count. Later, as they walk in the streets, they are approached by two adventurers who ask if they are from the Black Jester clan, and Dark asks about that nickname, and they say everyone calls them that, which puts Nemumu on guard. But the men introduce themselves as Sullivan and Gilbert, and ask if it is true they defeated the four-phase mantis, though Gilbert says that sounds impossible, and Nemumu immediately threatens him with her dagger, demanding if he's calling them liars. But Gold steps forward and asks what they want, and Sullivan explains they only want to encourage them to prove to the world that humans can be just as strong or even stronger than other races. Then, it is time for them to re-enter the dungeon, so they say goodbye. And as Dark observes, the other races mock humans, calling them delusional, but Dark's group ignores the insults and heads toward the 5th floor. On the way, they greet the small adventurer team again, and Mia gives Dark a small seashell, saying it contains a remedy for burns inherited from her grandmother, and while it won't erase scars, it can ease the pain. And Dark gratefully accepts it and gives her a bracelet in return, which she happily accepts. Afterward, Nemumu asks Light if he will regret giving away his double S rank miracle bracelet, but Light says it suited her perfectly, and Gold comments that gifting a lady a bracelet that grants a miraculous wish is extremely elegant and chivalrous. Later, they finally reach the 5th floor where Light tells his team to handle the Yeti hunt, and then uses teleportation to return to his kingdom, where he is welcomed by all 499 of his subordinates. And upon arriving in his office, May hands him his coffee while he asks how the revenge project is progressing, and she tells him everything is going perfectly and will be ready soon. And Light congratulates her, thanks her for her hard work, and tells the rest of the girls to continue their tasks as they have been doing. Though when Nasuna asks what she should do, he thinks to himself that she is not suited for complicated tasks. So he tells her to protect the place while he is gone, and she happily accepts her mission as Light grows anxious to execute his revenge and see Sasha's face. And meanwhile, on the 3rd floor of the dungeon, Sullivan and Gilbert are standing guard while their team rests, talking about the achievements of the Black Jester group and wondering if any of it is true. Gilbert doubts it, but when Sullivan says the witness was a human girl, Gilbert admits it might actually be real, and if so, this could become the legend that finally ends discrimination against humans, and he gets up saying he'll go water the plants. But when he returns and asks Gilbert to wake the others for their turn at watch, he instead finds the horrifying sight of all their companions dead, and Kito scolds him for taking too long. Sullivan panics, knowing he cannot defeat him, and Kito provokes him to attack, but Sullivan thinks quickly and uses a smoke curtain to escape and warn the others so Kito pays for his crimes, only to be intercepted and knocked out by Yanak, who complains that humans are cowards and scolds Kito because they needed the humans alive. Yet Kito says one is enough for experiments, though Yanak snaps that his experiments never worked the first time, and they will need many more test subjects. And he also plans to make good use of the trash left at the camp to show the world what garbage is truly worth. The next day at the guild, Nemumu is arguing with the receptionist, demanding that her master Dart be promoted because he deserves S rank, but the receptionist explains that although she knows he is strong, the rules won't allow it, and they already made an exception by moving him from F to D, and now he must accomplish a heroic act to rise. Light asks for information, and that night at the inn, he tells Gold and Nemumu that they must hunt the adventurer killer, a perfect mission to achieve that heroic feat, though they lack information. Gold asks if Light has a map, but maps drop randomly, and Nemumu suggests calling reinforcements from the abyss and attacking with a human army since the killer only targets humans, but Light feels they must stop him quickly. And just then they sense a presence and get ready as a dimensional hole opens and Mia appears, teleported by the bracelet Light gave her. They lay her on a bed as she mutters that they must ask Dart for help, and he heals her injuries, apologizing for entering her mind but needing to see what happened. He sees the memory of how the small team was warned in the dungeon about the killer and told to retreat and warn every human they saw. So the kids walked all day to leave the dungeon, only to be intercepted by Kito's team disguised as adventurers. The kids warned them about the killings and told them to retreat as well, and Kito acted grateful, pretending to understand why fewer adventurers were appearing. But Yanok whispered they should have been more discreet because they didn't expect the news to spread so fast, and the guild turned out to be more efficient than expected. Io didn't understand anything and asked what they meant, and Yanok said humans are complete idiots, and Kito revealed he was the adventurer killer. The kids panicked as Ilio ordered Mia to run while they stayed behind to hold them off, but Kito refused to let them escape and slashed open Ilio's abdomen, killing him instantly, and Y and Jinra attacked but were gravely wounded. Mia froze in terror, but Y stood up again and ordered her to flee, and Jinra rose too for a last attack, but Kito killed them, and Yanok again scolded him for killing the test subjects, but Kito said he would crush every cockroach that resisted, and besides, they still had one left. Yanok agreed the girl was useful, but they still needed more samples. Kito told him to stop whining and approached Mia, saying that before crippling her, he wanted to have some fun, but Yanok, uninterested in that, walked away after reminding him not to kill her. Mia begged him not to come closer, but Kito said she should feel honored to be used for his pleasure, and as she froze in fear, Elio suddenly rose again and begged her to run. Yanok warned Kito not to kill the boy because his resilience made him extremely valuable, so Mia finally understood they had no chance and ran, while Elio blocked Yanok's path, remembering Gold's teachings: a shield to defend, a sword to attack, and above all, creativity in battle. Kito thought he had gone insane, but Elio threw his sword and then slammed his shield into him, shocking Kito because that trash touched him. And furious as Elio laughed in his face, Kito stabbed him through the body. As he prepared to torment him further, Yanok ordered him to chase the girl. Meanwhile, Mia ran desperately, searching for someone to tell the truth, but Kito cut her off and declared he'd teach her proper behavior in front of a future legendary hero, revealing that his sacred sword Grandius can create clones he controls at will, and she should give up because she cannot escape him. But Mia refused because just like her brother and friends sacrificed themselves for her, she must also fight, and she cast ice stakes to distract him and run. But Kito caught her and ordered her to accept her fate and surrender to the future hero. She shouted that he is no hero because a hero is brave, strong, and kind, just like Dark, while he only enjoys hurting the weak, provoking Kito to remember how other elves mocked him for only being strong enough to bully the weak, calling him a disgraceful bootlicker of the captain, until he was expelled from the White Knight Order. Mia called him a loser and he screamed at her to shut up, preparing to send her to heaven, but she thought she could not die there because she must warn the others, and at that instant the bracelet teleported her to Dart. Furious, he ordered his group to move. Meanwhile, in the dungeon, Kito reported to Yanok that the girl just disappeared, and Yanok panicked because humans don't have teleport artifacts, and if the guild learns of this, they will inform the Elf Kingdom, and if they discover he also stole Grandius, the White Knight Order, whose captain is above level 3000 and whose knights are level 2000, all wielding weapons equal to Grandius, will come for them. Kito panicked, but Yanok tried calming him, saying that if their experiment succeeds, he can surpass his limits and even the knights won't be a threat. But suddenly, Dark appeared and said it was too late to escape. Seeing the bodies of Jinra and Wardy, he mourned their deaths while Gold told him Elio was somehow still alive thanks to someone giving first aid. Dark healed him and demanded to know why the elves did this when those kids had never harmed them. And despite discrimination in the world, those young adventurers were pure and brave, and only wanted Mia to achieve her dream, and under different circumstances, they might even have become friends, so he refused to forgive them. Yanok told him to calm down, claiming he was the one who saved Elio, and besides, they had no proof they were the killers, but Light revealed the girl they were hunting was under his protection, and they need not worry because he won't report them to the guild. Kito laughed excitedly, thinking his problems were over, and he would become a legendary hero, but Light smiled coldly and told him he was just trash, and the reason he won't report them is because they are his prey, and he will make them suffer until they beg for death. He ordered Gold and Namumu not to interfere, and walked toward the two elves. Enraged, Kito screamed that he would rip off Light's skin and make him eat it before tearing him apart, attacking with everything he had, but Light blocked all his strikes effortlessly, shocking Yanok, who could not believe a human boy could stop such attacks. Light remarked that he fights like a brainless beast, and bored by his weakness, knocked the wind out of him with a single blow, and as Kito writhed on the ground, Light told him to try harder or he might accidentally kill him too quickly. Kito stood again, refusing to be mocked by a human, and unleashed Grandius's power, creating multiple sword clones and charging at Light with as Kito unleashes different elemental attacks, but even with all that he still cannot rival Light, who dodges everything with ease while thinking that although the attacks look powerful, they are nothing impressive, and when Kito tries to strike him from behind, Light blocks him again, and Yanok cannot believe how a human kid is facing an elf wielding a phantom-class sword, while Kito complains that Light pretended to be a mage but is actually a knight, though Light casually replies that he actually is a mage, and Gold comments that the elf thinks he knows everything but understands nothing, and then Light summons the icy swords with without any chant, leaving Kido stunned as he attacks again with the power of Grandius, only for Light to repel every blow with the frozen blades. Yanak cannot believe how Light is blocking every materialized projectile of Grandius with elite-level precision far beyond any elven mage, and Kido keeps attacking, but Light forms a full barrier of icy swords around his body, confusing Kido because nothing makes sense. He is an elf destined to be a legendary hero wielding a national treasure once held by a heaven-sent master. Hearing the word master, Light becomes interested and asks if he knows one, but Kido starts laughing, saying master blood runs in his veins, making him a sub-master, which catches Light's curiosity even more, while Kido brags about being a superior being, but Light only cares about the sub-master part and tells Nemumu and Gold that the plan has changed. They will take him to the abyss, extract his brain, and squeeze out all information. However, Yanak refuses, saying he is a scientist, not a fighter, but has no choice but to use his trump cards, revealing his chimeras, horrifying half-human, half-monster experiments, and he declares that he will reach the peak of his research thanks to them, though they require many humans to stabilize, so he needs more test subjects to fulfill his destiny and break the racial limiter. Light gets sick listening to him and orders him to shut up, telling Gold and Nemumu to free those poor adventurers from their suffering because he recognizes their faces as the people from earlier, warning them not to kill Yanak because he plans to interrogate him. Gold and Nemumu instantly send the chimeras to heaven, but Yanak smugly tells them not to be overconfident, and the chimeras stand up again and charge at them while he laughs that they can never beat his creations. And meanwhile, Kido screams at Light demanding his attention. Nemumu and Gold, tired of the victims' suffering, decide to give them a dignified death and destroy the chimeras for good, shocking Yanak, who cannot understand why they are not regenerating. And when he approaches to inspect, Nemumu shatters his dragon spheres, knocking him out instantly, something you wouldn't do even to your worst enemy. Light asks Kito what he plans to do with all that supposed power, and Kito, remembering how Elio mocked him, gets enraged that no human respects him and releases the full force of Grandius to wipe them out. But Light calmly watches and notes how the sword holds multiple magical elements and even stretches like a whip as Kito's speed increases. Light admits it looks flashy but says it's all just show, and Kito screams in fury asking how he dares say that when Light is only running, claiming that one hit from his sword could kill him, and Light asks if he is sure and tells him to strike him point blank. Kito rushes in blindly but freezes when his sword fails to touch Light at all, and Light mocks him, asking if that thing was supposed to hurt, giving Kito a second chance to attack, and the terrified elf swings in desperation, but Light casually swats his magic aside and then beats him so hard he flies away. And approaching him, Light says not to worry because he won't kill him yet. He has many questions, so he will kill him later when he begs for release. Realizing he is now the insect, Kito drops to his knees begging for mercy, saying he was supposed to be commander of the White Knights and will tell everything he knows, even surrender Grandius, but Light, disappointed, asks if he really won't fight back when he bragged so much about being a legendary hero, because true heroes stand up even in the worst moments, just like Elio, Jinra, and Y, who rose to protect Mia. And Light gives Kito one last chance, promising that if he can land even a single strike on Light's face, he will let him go because a legendary hero should fight until his final breath. But Kito flees like a coward, and Light uses the Solar Ray card to pierce his leg, making him writhe in pain as Light tells him Mia was right. He is no hero, only a coward. Later, Light apologizes to Jinra and Wardy, saying he will bury them in the abyss because he cannot leave them in that dungeon full of monsters. Kito and Yanak ask what will happen to them, but Nemumu beats them for daring to talk to her lord, and Light regrets not killing them earlier. He teleports them to the abyss where the elves ask where they are, and Light says they are at the very bottom, shocking them because they cannot believe anyone lives in the worst dungeon in the world. The double new girls gather and ask what those creatures are, and Light answers that they are criminals who sacrificed many humans, and he brought them here because they know things about the masters. The girls stare at them coldly, promising eternal torment before death, and Light tells them they will die after answering his questions and orders Gold to treat Elio's wounds while he and Nemumu go to bury Jinra and Wardy. Yanak begs forgiveness, saying he was only a victim, while Kito blames Yanak for manipulating him. But Light looks at them with disgust, asking what happened to their supremacist attitude now that they're begging the same insects they once insulted, and he leaves as they cry for mercy. Mia wakes up in the inn asking where she is, and Light tells her they are back at the lodgings, and he had to go to the dungeon for the adventurer killer mission. She asks about the others, and Light looks at Elio saying he will recover, but Jinra and Wardy did not, and he hands her locks of their hair, and she breaks down crying in gratitude. Light leaves thinking that on his revenge path he sometimes hears voices whether he wants to or not. The next day at the guild, the receptionist is surprised they brought all the information about the killer, and Light asks if she is sure she can promote him since the mission was to capture the killer, but she says no problem, confirming that an elf and dark elf were responsible and that Light also saved 2 adventurers, so promotion is normal. He thanks her, and that night Mia and Elio tell them they will leave the city tomorrow and thank them them for everything, and the group wishes them luck. Light asks what they will do now, and Elio says they will leave Wilda and return home, and Light asks why not form another clan. But Mia admits she is too scared after what happened, and she only became an adventurer to explore dungeons with her friends. And without Wardy and Jinra, it will never be the same, and for now, they just want to take them home, or at least their hair. Light understands and asks what will happen with magic school, and Mia says she will study on her own, and when they meet again, she will definitely become a great sorceress, nervously asking if they will meet again, and Light promises they will, and she tells him to keep his promise. The group departs, and Gold tells Light those kids are brave and will surely find their path soon, and Light knows it too, thinking that one day he can remove his mask, and when that moment comes, he will take them to the graves of Jinra and Wardy. He returns to the Abyss, and the girls welcome him with their investigation report, each using extremely shady methods to extract information, and everything matches Kito's memories. The Submaster term refers to someone of master lineage who levels up extremely fast, and letting masters roam freely could end the entire world. And Light wonders why not just a country but the entire world, and what kind of being could be so important. He asks the girls' opinions, but they say everything is based only on Kito's memories, and the White Knight captain's so exact meaning is unknown, though their next lead is the captain. Light asks where the prisoners are, and when shown, he decides they are no longer useful, and uses the Dead Feast card to kill them with deep agony, then asks Eli about the plan, and she says everything is ready and they await his signal to begin the revenge project against Sasha. They must approach the White Knight Order, who are Sasha's masters, and learn more, and conveniently, the vice captain is engaged to Sasha, so he will be perfect bait. Light praises Eli's work and orders her to begin. Meanwhile, in the Elf Kingdom, Sasha tells her fiancé Mikkel how she enjoyed terrorizing that filthy human Light, and he says they sometimes have to wipe out whole human towns and he enjoys watching them suffer, calling Sasha the only woman who shares his twisted pleasure, revealing both of them are sick monsters who love tormenting humans. Light, on the other hand, says their reunion is coming soon, and he cannot wait to see Sasha's face twisted in agony begging for mercy, just like Guru did. She is riding in her carriage, happily talking about little things like how her husband is unbelievably handsome and how he is the most perfect knight in the world. But suddenly the carriage stops because a starving slave collapses right in front of them, unable to lift even a simple box, and Sasha clicks her tongue in annoyance, saying they now have to wait for that useless piece of trash who can't even pick up a crate. But when she leans out the window to complain, her eyes widen in shock because she sees the figure of Light walking past, and without even thinking, she jumps out of the carriage and runs after him, convinced that her mind must be playing a cruel joke on her because that boy should not be alive. She chases him desperately until she reaches a dead-end alley where she looks around in confusion, wondering where he disappeared, then tries to calm herself, telling her trembling heart that she must have imagined it. But when she turns around to go back to the carriage, she sees a note stuck to the wall, signed by Light, telling her to return to the Great Tower. And Sasha screams in pure panic as her maid rushes to her side asking what happened, but Sasha is completely overwhelmed, feeling the crushing fear that she is about to lose everything she gained by eliminating Light. Her noble title, her mansion, her reward, and even her engagement with Michael, all slipping from her hands. Meanwhile, Light watches her from above with a satisfied smile, praising Ai for performing beautifully, and Ai respectfully tells her master that she will make Sasha suffer so deeply that the pain will carve itself into her soul, her bones, and her flesh. At the same time, far away in the headquarters of the White Knights, two sickly members are torturing a human while another one is casually groping his slave, asking his captain if it's true that the ex-knight Kito stole Grandius, joined a dark elf, and slaughtered humans, complaining that if it's real, the higher-ups will surely force them to clean up the mess. But another knight named Muste, irritated, reminds him that as White Knights, it is their duty to intervene in disasters caused by that renegade knight, though Harfat tells him not to be so serious because he'd rather keep touching his slave's chest, and then tells the others to finish off the pathetic human already because the noise is annoying him. The two tormentors refuse because they bought the slave with their own salary and can do whatever they want, but Must interrupts again, saying they are White Knights and humans are weak, so the most merciful thing is to bless them with a clean death by their pure swords instead of letting them live a miserable life, and the four begin arguing about their twisted ideologies until the captain suddenly orders them to shut up, and his overwhelming pressure is so terrifying that even a poor bird outside drops dead on the spot. Everyone goes pale with fear as the captain commands Naya and Kia to stop torturing the human because they are reducing its ability to kill, then tells Musti that being too strict can also be harmful, and finally turns to Sharfat, who without hesitation kills the human instantly, causing his slave to panic and tremble. The captain orders Naya and Kia to dispose of the corpse and tells Muste to follow him because it's time to move out, while Sharfat calmly tells his slave to return to her room, and she immediately runs off in fear. The captain then advises Sharfat not to get too close to human women so he doesn't contaminate his bloodline, explaining that elves originally carry the blood of a master orc and that the White Knights are all submasters maintaining that lineage. But Sharfat replies that they don't evolve anymore except Muste, and the captain tells him that no one has seen another master from millennia, and their priority is to preserve their noble blood. Sharfad answers that he has no intention of creating half-breed children anyway. He is only having fun because it amuses him to see human women get excited just because an elf chose them, watching them fight each other desperately so he won't throw them away into the streets. And he adds with a cold smile that very soon his current slave's turn will come. At that moment, the captain leaves, knowing they will soon receive orders to clean up the disaster caused by Quito, because whether they like it or not, that man was once a knight, and the captain refuses to let anyone stain the image of the majestic queen. Later that night, Sasha hears a loud rumble, and when she looks out the window, she sees a gigantic tower rising in the distance, instantly remembering that Light's note ordered her to meet at the Great Tower, while Light calmly comments that the stage is finally prepared. Meanwhile, we see a slave trader transporting a group of human children, but suddenly a hellhound appears on the road and he runs for his life, abandoning everything, and soon the rumor spreads inside a tavern that a terrifying monster is blocking the path to the village, stopping all cargo from arriving. Everyone begins assuming it must be connected to the giant tower, and even though the king is supposedly investigating, there are not enough men, so huge rewards are being offered for information. Light is pleased that his plan is working, but then a group of elves approaches Nemumu, interested in her beauty and shocked that such a lovely girl is human, inviting her to join their group, but she coldly tells them to get lost because she only serves her master Light, who says Nemumu is a valuable member of his team, making her blush with joy. The elves, insulted, attack Light, but he instantly counters with Impact Thunder, shocking them because he used magic without chanting, which makes them realize he must be the Black Jester of Dadgus. The group continues on their way, happy that things are going according to plan, and Light hopes the other girls are doing just as well. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, another group of elves gathering information is using a small human girl as bait to sacrifice whenever they need to escape. But as they walk, the girl grows tired and they begin scolding her, until suddenly the hellhound appears and devours one of the elves instantly, then flicks its tail and sends the other two flying straight to heaven. The girl panics, certain that she is next, but when the hellhound sniffs her, it simply walks away. And at that moment, a group of misfits arrives and gets excited because they found a slave, and the little girl cries thinking she was saved only to be captured again. But then the men spray her with a healing potion that closes her wounds. She looks shocked, and one of them tells Aoyuki they rescued another child. Then Eli reunites with her and asks Aoyuki if everything is going according to plan, and Aoyuki responds by meowing softly at every question, confirming each point. However, Eli still feels uneasy because if anything goes wrong, the entire plan will fall apart, and she wonders if she should warn the others, but that would go against her lord's will. Seeing her anxiety, Aoyuki tells her to stay still, but Eli asks if she doesn't think it's better to understand and help their master however they can, and Aoyuki answers that they are whatever their lord declares them to be. They live to fight for him, to calm him, serve him, spoil him. They are his sword and his shield, and if needed, they will die for him. Eli is stunned, unable to believe she reduces her existence to that of a simple pet, but Aoyuki replies she thinks the same, and if Eli ever doubts their divine lord's intentions, she won't hesitate to kill her. With a cold, serious gaze, she asks Eli if she thinks she could win, and Eli answers that they will see when the moment comes, because only then will they know what happens if one of the double nine disappears, since if she does not respect their lord's will, she will be killed, raising the tension between them frighteningly high. But then Aoyuki's group reports that all the children are now safe, and the little girl thanks them for saving her, and Eli thinks perhaps she worried too much. As she leaves, she thanks Aoyuki because she learned a lot from her. Meanwhile, Aoyuki's group cannot believe elves would use humans as bait, and wonder if any race even has morals, but their leader orders them to save their breath because they must leave at dawn. Later that night, Sasha agonizes over what to do because level 1500 monsters are invading the forest and she cannot enter alone. Yet she is terrified of telling the White Knights because they'll discover Light is still alive and take away all her rewards. So she feels she must reach the tower herself and kill Light with her own hands. The next day in the royal palace, the White Knight Council decides they must take initiative to protect the population. Captain Hardy agrees with the Prime Minister in principle, but finds his request illogical because sending the entire Knight Order without precise information is like using a legendary sword to clean a sewer, and he cannot send his men blindly. The rest of the council feels the tension between them, whispering that only one person can stop them, Queen Le, who steps in and says the captain has a point, so she orders the reward increased and more forces gathered to collect information. As they leave, the Prime Minister shows open contempt for the captain, who then meets privately with the Queen and thanks her for her support, revealing she is actually his mother. Lev tells him she would never put her beloved son in danger, and Hardy warns her that the Prime Minister is a dangerous man using the sudden tower appearance as yet another excuse to interfere with court affairs. She laughs it off, but Hardy tells her not to let her guard down because he is certain that man would attempt a coup d'etat if he had the chance. The Queen answers that she doesn't worry as long as Hardy is with her, but what does concern her is the strange appearance of that tower. Hardy asks if she means the return of the Demon King, and she seriously replies that if that were the case, the alliance of the 8 nations should handle it, but ironically, only a human could be their savior. She bitterly wishes they could eradicate all humans, but if they did, the elves would be the ones slaughtered by the Demon King. She concludes that a master must be inside the tower, and they must either form an alliance with him or kill him. Hardy mentions it reminds him of the boy they suspected of being a master, and she replies that according to the report, he wasn't, so they killed him. Hardy sighs, saying he wishes he'd gotten that mission, though it wasn't a task for the captain of the White Knights, who desires to eradicate humans more than anyone. Meanwhile, a temporary camp has opened near the tower, where adventurers gather to collect information in exchange for the reward. The same elf group from before sees Dart and gets furious, and while they walk, Sasha suddenly appears, recognizing Light's voice and ordering him to stop. The group prepares to attack, but Light forbids them to interfere. Sasha angrily orders him to reveal his face, which enrages Nemumu for speaking so arrogantly to her master, but Light refuses to remove his mask because it hides a burn scar, though Sasha doesn't care and slaps him, ripping off the mask, only to recoil in disgust at the sight of his burns, telling him to cover his disgusting face at once. Light calmly replies she was the one who insisted on seeing it, and Sasha storms off desperately trying to erase the horrible image from her mind. Light thanks Golden Nemumu for holding back, knowing it must have been difficult, and admits he still cannot understand how he failed to see Sasha's true personality 3 years ago. He then announces it is time to proceed with the plan as they head into the forest, unaware that the elves are following them. After wandering for a while, Elle asks how long they plan to trail them, warning that if they keep this up, they will die, but the elves arrogantly declare the only ones dying will be them, and Light tells them he warned them. After a long chase, the group gathers at a massive tree, waiting for the pursuers to arrive, and when Light sees them, he congratulates them, saying he is impressed because he thought they would give up. The elves reply that escape is impossible, and Gol sadly comments that they use their own abilities to walk straight into death. The elves arrogantly tell them to feel honored to die at elf hands, but Light calls out to Mara and asks her to handle things, leaving the elves confused, thinking he's talking to himself, until Mara suddenly appears behind them, filling them with pure terror as she demands to know who they think they are to speak so rudely to her master, and for disrespecting him, she tells them they are going to die. The elves are frozen in fear as Mara begins consuming them with her twisted tentacle-like arms, telling them begging won't work on her, and finally devouring them completely. Light apologizes to Mara, saying he didn't want to give her more work, but she replies her lord shouldn't worry, and even though those elves didn't taste good, she would eat 100,000 of them for him. GL comments that while Mara is incredibly reliable, she is terrifying, and Nemumu agrees, but Mara tells them they are comrades and they shouldn't fear her. Then the rest of the double cards appear, saying Mara is right and they are here to carry out every order their Lord Light gives. The Sherlock Holmes-looking girl is Suzu, the Todoroki-like girl is Icehead, and Jack is with them as well. Light apologizes for calling them all to the forest, but Icehead says he shouldn't worry because with so many adventurers around, flying is too risky right now, and then scolds Suzu to answer her lord more politely. But Suzu is so shy that her rifle speaks for her instead. Light tells her it's fine, and Suzu leads them forward, and as they continue walking, Gol feels happy to reunite with. Jack answers that Lady I ordered him to assist, and besides, he couldn't possibly leave his little brother Light alone, but the moment he says that, all the girls snap, glaring at him with deadly intent. He awkwardly tells them not to look at him like that and asks if they don't like him calling Light by his name, reminding them that they are all comrades and there is no reason to put Light on a pedestal because Light himself never asked them to do that. Ghoul nervously asks Jack to calm down because he is provoking them even more, but Jack keeps teasing, saying that if they keep trying to place Light above everyone as some kind of lord, he will not allow them to leave him alone up there, and as his big brother he will stand beside him. But Light finally steps in, asking Jack to stop provoking them, and also tells the girls that he doesn't mind how Jack calls him, so he hopes they won't be too harsh on him, which thankfully softens their mood a little even though the atmosphere stays awkward as they walk. So Light tries to change the subject and talks to Icehead, saying he hasn't seen her use her gloves in a long time, and Icehead replies she has been learning how to become a proper maid for Miss May and hasn't used the gloves in so long that now wearing them feels strange. Mara casually suggests she should just remove her whole outfit if it bothers her, which makes Icehead angrily argue with her because she can't do something so indecent in front of her lord. Light smiles, happy to see they get along well, and Ghoul shares the same feeling toward Jack, though Susu continues walking alone and very quiet. Nemumu then asks her if Susu is actually a girl, because Susu's card described her as a double gunner, and Nemumu doesn't understand what that means since Susu only holds one rifle. Where is the other one? Nobody knows. After a while, the group finally reaches the Great Tower and Eli, seeing Light, gets excited and the girls immediately run to him. Eli invites him inside, and when the door opens, Light is shocked to see how enormous the tower is inside, and even more stunned to find a massive dragon guarding the entire entrance. Eli calmly says it is just a small pet she summoned for this operation, and explains that her lord's throne for the welcome ceremony is at the top of the tower. The group teleports to the throne room and everyone bows before Light, and Eli prepares to review their plan plan, asking everyone to listen carefully. She explains that Sasha's engagement to a member of the royal family was the perfect opportunity that couldn't be wasted, so she took the chance to add her own twist to things. As an experiment, she plans to use the most powerful force of the Elven Kingdom, the White Knights, to test their combat strength. Light thinks it is an excellent idea, and Sasha continues by saying that besides testing them, they can also capture the White Knights, weakening the Elven Kingdom and forcing them into submission, while also interrogating them for information about the Masters, allowing them to gather more and more information about the neighboring nations, and the tower will serve as their surface operations base. Meanwhile, while they conduct everything here, they will use the Shadow Clone to rise through the adventurer ranks, and everything is planned so that Light can witness it while waiting for the main event. Light praises her for her hard work, and Eli, delighted, informs him that Sasha is being guided to this location by Aoyuki, who at that very moment is in the forest frightened by the sight of a hellhound, but refuses to give up even though her escorts warn they cannot defeat such a creature, though she angrily reminds them she paid them a lot of money. But when Eli's summoned beast appears, Sasha realizes there is absolutely nothing she can do and is forced to retreat, wondering how she can possibly kill Light without the White Knights finding out. Inside the tower, the group watches as the plan progresses perfectly, because this way Sasha is forced to return with the White Knights, allowing the strongest of the Elven Kingdom to face the strongest of the Abyss. Later that night in the royal palace, Sasha gathers with the Queen and the High Command, reporting that the forest is filled with strange, powerful creatures, forcing all weaker monsters to flee the primordial forest. The council thinks she is spouting nonsense, but Sasha insists that besides the Hellhound, there is also a dragon living inside the tower. The council refuses to believe it, because if that were true, the Elven Kingdom would be doomed. Sasha tries to convince them, saying she fears for the kingdom, and that is why she investigated on her own. The Prime Minister seizes the opportunity, stating that with Sasha's evidence and the report from the adventurers of the Black Jester, Captain Hardy and the White Knights must now intervene and eradicate the danger, and he asks Hardy if this isn't a good enough reason to deploy the White Knights. Hardy stands immediately, declaring that he will eradicate all evil with his great strength and reveal the mysteries of the tower before marching out. Afterwards, Sasha meets with the Prime Minister and begs to join the mission to kill the dragon, and he replies she shouldn't worry because he planned that from the beginning. But if she wants to participate, she must meet one condition. Her determination is admirable, but her level is a problem. So if she wants to join, she must ask her father for a certain object. Soon after, Sasha meets him and tells him she has a request. The next day, the White Knights gather outside the forest, and Hardy explains that Sasha will guide them to the tower. Two short knights whisper that Sasha only managed to show up thanks to the Prime Minister, and that she even obtained a powerful artifact, while Hardy quietly laments that high-ranking officers shouldn't bring their political disputes onto the battlefield. As they enter the forest, Light and the others watch from the comfort of the tower, thrilled that everything is going exactly as planned, and Light cannot stop trembling with excitement, wondering what expression Sasha will make when she arrives. Meanwhile, the knights ask Sasha if she is taking the right path, and she confirms it, saying she marked the trail herself, and when she sees another mark, she runs ahead but trips and would have fallen if her fiancé hadn't caught her, and they begin flirting in a way that makes everyone else uncomfortable. Elsewhere, the Hellhound begins to move, and finally the White Knights reach the tower, asking who on earth built such a thing. At that moment, the tower doors open and several Hellhounds rush out. Sharfat warns his captain that they cannot defeat them all, but can use the situation to their advantage. But Hardy replies that they only need to go after the dragon because they don't know the strength of these monsters and should avoid every fight possible until they defeat it, and it's time for the adventurers they hired to start making noise. Right then, explosions erupt from the far side of the forest, drawing the Hellhounds away. Hardy confirms that there are 5 Hellhounds, just like Sasha reported, and orders everyone to enter the tower, warning them that inside there may be even more kinds of monsters, so they must stay alert. Then he activates silence magic, shocking Sasha because she cannot hear her own heartbeat, realizing this is Hardy's silent power. Without wasting time, they enter the tower as Eli tells Light that it's time for him to enjoy himself because what's coming will serve as the opening act. Sharfat is the first to enter the tower, followed by the other knights, but then a teleportation circle activates and separates all of them, while Light waits patiently for Sasha to take her time reaching the center, because after all, she is the star of this entire show. And with that, episode 9 comes to the end.